All right. Hello. Welcome to Swimway Africa YouTube series. On Swimway Africa YouTube series, you would be learning a lot about Africa, its rivers, its water bodies, migratory fish, dam removals, and what you can do to help the migratory fish species in Africa. And of course, this is directly related to the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, life below water. You would realize that most of African countries rely solely on the coastline or the ocean for their livelihoods and, of course, as a source of revenue. So this is very important, and that's why we are focusing on migratory fish. We need to learn when fishes start migrating, the types of migratory fish, and why we should ensure that fishes do migrate as at when due. So joining me today is an expert, actually the coordinator for Swimway Africa, Dr. Kerry Brink. You're welcome, ma'am, to the program.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be
Okay,
here.
so oh, thank you so much for making our time to join in. Okay, so I know Dr. Kerry Brink is the coordinator for Swimway Africa and works with the World Fish Migration Foundation Netherlands. What else does she do?
Yeah. So I'm an aquatic ecologist, and
Hey.
I'm originally from South Africa, and I'm inspired about rivers and the life that rivers hold. And I came to the Netherlands, and I met some very inspiring people in the Netherlands, and they talk about fish migrating and all of the work that they have to do to bring the fish back, because a lot of the fish have become extinct, or don't aren't in the rivers in Europe and in the Netherlands, and it costs a lot of money, and they have to do a lot of restoration. And so this inspires me to bring the message and to start something in Africa to make sure that we protect our fish and our rivers in Africa, so we don't have to try and bring back fish that have died from all sorts of impacts from humans. And yeah, and I that is my mission. My life's ambition. A mission is to
Mm.
save rivers and migratory fish.
Oh, interesting. So you are concerned about rivers in Africa and the lives that they hold, basically. And that would translate to humans as well, especially for those who depend on the rivers for their livelihoods.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just about the river's ecosystem, but fish and and the water resource. So if you think about water, where do we get our water from? From the rivers, and from rivers
That's
that
true.
are sustainably flowing. Without clean water, we will not be able to survive. And if we think about fish, fish are a source of food for many people around the world and in Africa as well. And people depend on it also for their livelihoods, the fishery sector, and for the economy as a whole. The fisheries have a huge role in bringing money into a country, and of course, in terms of recreation and a sense of well-being for people. If you go down to a river and you're in nature, there's a feeling of of peace and relaxation, and it reduces stress, and there are a number of positive health effects that have been shown just by being in nature and being by the river, and the sound even of the river flowing is
Okay.
yeah, is something that's important. So yeah, so it has a massive role for people and for economies.
Wow. I like the way you express your passion. Apparently, this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. Save rivers, connect people, connect fish and rivers. Yes. Okay, so we know that there are thousands of species all around the world and, in the wild or the ocean, and even those who do fish culture, like that is aquaculture. Um, could you let us know, to a layman, they may not know that of all the thousands of species in the water, in the ocean, there are specific ones that tend to move from one type of water body to another. So I may have an idea, but I'd like for you to tell us, what is migratory fish?
Yeah, so migratory fish, and we talk about freshwater migratory fish. So there's different kinds as well that live in the sea and live in the rivers and freshwater systems. And our focus is more on the freshwater side, so on the rivers and in the big lakes. And these fish, there are about 10,000 freshwater fish species around the world, and about 1,000 of
Wow.
these, yeah, a lot of species, and that is the ones that we know. There are also many, for example,
Hmm.
in the Congo that we don't even know are there and
Wow.
haven't been identified. Yeah, so there's a lot more species, I'm sure. And so
Okay.
these this fish group, migratory fish, they what they need to do is to fulfill their life cycle. So in other words, for them to be able to reproduce, to lay the eggs, they need to move from one region to the other, and it's encoded in their genetics that they do this. So when the rains start to come down in the spring or in that specific region, they then often get this signal to their brain. Okay, we're ready to make the journey, and then they make the
Mhm.
journey, sometimes thousands of kilometers to their spawning grounds, and they spawn there, and then the juveniles then migrate slowly back to other regions, and this is all encoded um, in their in their genetics, that they do this on a seasonal basis. So that is what a migratory fish is. And there are also different kinds of migratory fish as well. Fish that migrate short distances, and then of course ones that migrate very long distances. So, for
Okay.
example, you have an eel, a freshwater eel. We have four different kinds of freshwater eel that visit the shores of Africa, and specifically Eastern Africa. And
Okay.
what they do is they spawn in the region around Madagascar or on the other side of Madagascar, and then their juveniles get caught up in the currents, in the ocean
Okay.
currents, and they migrate in these ocean currents, and eventually, as time goes on, they transform from eggs, then they transform to a bigger kind of larvae, and as they get bigger, by the time that they reach the shores of Africa, they about this size, and then they can
Okay.
start in the thousands or millions even. They start to
Wow.
migrate up into the river systems, and they migrate
Okay.
they migrate thousands of kilometers up river, and even they can pass dams, they can pass waterfalls, but of course it makes it very difficult. So maybe you get ones that are very resilient that can pass, but some of them also can't. So the impacts of the dams have been shown to influence these eel migrations. And then when they're up, when they've reached their their home for living, they will then stay there for years, and they grow and they grow and they grow, and they can grow to over a meter long.
Wow.
And then afterwards, after they get their internal signal, okay, we want to go back to the ocean, then they migrate back downstream and back to their home to spawn.
Wow. That's some journey. Thank you so much, Dr. Kerry. You've been able to answer most of the questions. I'm just going to point it out so the viewer can understand. You already mentioned migratory fish and the types, and basically, one who's wondering what fish migration is would understand from what you've said that it's pretty much movement of fish, the migratory species from one type of water body, maybe the seas to the freshwater systems, the rivers and lakes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you also highlighted why fishes migrate, either for spawning or for food. And of course, I'd like for you to highlight more the importance of fish migration. Why is it important that we pay attention to fish migration? How does that even concern humans? How does that relate to humans?
Yeah. So very good question. So there's two sides to it. The one side is that that we have a responsibility as humans to protect our biodiversity. And so if we decide okay, fine, we don't care about anything, we're just going to pollute, and we're going to wreck our rivers, and all of the fish die. We're going to have a future of canals, and a future where our children would never have been able to see a fish. And so that is our responsibility as human beings, to protect this biodiversity and protect the fish and the living bodies that we are living with them, and we need to protect them for our future generations, for our children's children. They will look back and they will ask, what on earth were we doing in 2021, just killing off all of the fish, from that perspective. From the other perspective, fish, particularly migratory fish, they, as I said before, they migrate long distances. So they're a very good indicator of stress. They're an indicator of all of the impacts that we are doing in a river system. So there's, in one river system, there's pollution. There's then a dam. There's 300 weirs, and there's then a big city, and all of these things that these migratory fish have to pass through. So for scientists, it's very a very good indicator to show what the status is of a river system, so that we can manage it correctly. So that that is also very very important in terms of showing us where are the issues, and how we can fix the issues. And for
so
one more thing about these migratory, this important migratory fish group, because they also have all of these issues that they have to focus on. I've lost my thought.
It's okay. Okay, so I just learned something new though. It's a good indicator of stress, because human activities on a daily basis pollute our water bodies. So, if, for example, an agency is saddled with the responsibility of monitoring um, pollution on our water bodies, uh, or maybe a group wants to run an environmental impact assessment, then the migratory fish species would act as indicators of stress in particular locations. So that's a very important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what are the roles of it? Because I could be wondering, for one, I'm not the government, I don't run an NGO, I don't occupy an office where I take the decisions when it has to do with the water bodies, the small rivers and lakes around. What are the roles of everyone? As an individual, for example, what is my role to ensure that migratory fish species are, you know, safe and we don't disrupt their migration? Yes.
Yeah.
What can I do?
So as the public, it's important to firstly know that there are fish, and the importance of the fish under the, in the river systems. And so knowledge, if you have children, just educating your children about the importance of fish, in these river systems, and talking to your family and friends about it. I think that is can be one of the very small first steps that you can do to make a difference.
Okay.
And of course, if you are really you want to get involved and you want to get your hands dirty, um, joining an NGO, as a volunteer to help cleaning up the rivers, going to the rivers, taking away the pollution, cleaning up, having litter days where you clean up the litter. That is also one of the first and very important steps to take, and of course ensuring not to litter and not to pollute the rivers, to try and make sure that our rivers remain clean. And if everybody takes responsibility of that, we can have beautiful, free flowing rivers for everyone.
Okay. So just a quick one. A lot of people think that when we talk about climate change, it's a complex problem and they don't contribute to it. So having learned the importance of migratory fish, is there any way whatsoever that climate change impacts on migratory fish?
This is comes out of my realm of expertise. So just
Okay.
to start with that, but in terms of climate change, absolutely, there's a massive impact. Because of climate change, the amount of evaporation that is happening from the lakes, and the rivers, there is less water available. So with
Okay.
less water and more regulation, that is that people are using more water for agriculture, using more water for all of these things. There's just not enough water for the end user. So that means that, for example, upstream, if you have a whole river system from the sea all the way up into the mountains, the
Okay.
the users upstream, say for example in the mountains, and as you go down, these users, they take up all of the water, and then on top of that, this gets exacerbated by climate change, by the increased evaporation, which would then,
Okay.
by the time it gets to the sea and the source, by the estuaries and the floodplains, there is not enough water that is coming down.
Wow.
So there's
Wow.
not enough, the salt to water ratio in the estuarine ecosystems are impacted, and there are many number of knock-on effects that influence livelihoods and people. So
Wow.
that's just one aspect of climate change that would impact migratory fish.
Wow. It sounds like there are more, but I think this is how far we can go on this edition. And I must say thank you. Your thoughts have been really eye-opening, because a layman would be wondering, what has fish migration got to do with climate change? How does it even relate? But now we've been able to learn that with less water and increased evaporation, then there is less water, the salt water ratio, of course, would not be balanced, and that's a problem, especially for the estuary water systems. So thank you so much, Dr. Kerry. We've been able to learn migratory fish, why fishes migrate, the importance of fish migrations, and our role. I think the most important thing that would be our roles as individuals to ensure that we help fishes migrate when they ought to, without delay, so that they could complete their life cycle, and they could also spawn and increase in the wild. And most importantly, one way we can do that is to educate other people and also volunteer for NGOs that work on fish migration and protection of our water bodies. And of course, you said something important: littering. Just the decision to stop littering, because most of the trash ends up on our water bodies, would go a long way to saving our fish and our migratory fishes. Yes.
Yeah,
So
well
thank
said.
you so much for the interesting session. Um, well, that's how far we can go, the listener. Next week promises to be very interesting with another expert. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Kerry.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.